Earlier, I'm Dr. Kristopher Hunt, the medical director for USA Powerlifting. We host competitions that range from local to national level, starting at age, I believe, 10 now, all the way through. We have some 90-year-olds competing. And we actually feed into the International Powerlifting Federation, which the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, recognizes, and we abide by the IOC guidelines and feed into the Olympic World Games. So what is powerlifting? So powerlifting is, well, it's often confused with bodybuilding. It's not flexing on a stage. It's arguably the best measure of total body strength. And it's broken down into 3 separate lifts. So the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. And then you can combine the lifts into the one's powerlifting total. And the powerlifting total is what's used to determine a winner. And as you can see on the right, there's a photo of a squat, a bench press, and a deadlift from top to bottom. And so I believe I got asked to speak because our data is fairly compelling in speaking to how different men and women are in strength capacity, and what is the capacity of a trans woman to compete as well, at least in sports with a strength domain. And so you can see in this graph, this is data from about 17,000 lifters from the International Powerlifting Federation. You can see it develops itself nicely into 2 natural bell curves. And the 2 natural bell curves actually develop themselves not because of age, not because of weight class, but actually because of sex. And as you can see, the bell curve on the left is the female sex, and on the bell curve on the right is the male sex. And you can see that there's very little overlap there. And actually, when you break this data down even further into weight class, because we have weight classes in our sport, that the overlap between male and female is extremely small, if not non-existent. And so this is another way to state some interesting data as well that we found, and which is with regard to the magnitude of the effects of sex, and a few other variables as you see here. And so the first effect here is the magnitude of the effect of being an XY person, a male, or born male. And that person will enjoy a 64% advantage over someone that was born female. And you see in the middle, we actually have data from those who pop a positive drug test for steroids, as well as other aggregate data from other sources. And someone that's born female that then takes steroids enjoys a 10% advantage over the rest of her competitors. And then what about a trans woman? And so trans women, as it turns out, enjoy probably a 54% advantage of someone that was born female. That's a lot. So that's like taking a 400-pound squat and making it into a 616-pound squat. So how do we know this? Well, how do we know this 10% difference? And so as you can see, that's the negative effect of becoming trans women. So the negative effect of essentially transitioning. And so I say here the negative effect of anti-androgen. Well, anti-androgen is something that's a testosterone blocker, and that's what is used to transition from male to female. And so you get this common theme of taking steroids. So taking testosterone, gives you a 10% advantage, and taking away testosterone gives you a negative 10% advantage. And so we've got the same graph here on this next slide. And I want to state this in a different way. And so our federal Congress felt that it was so important to talk about steroids in baseball that it was one of the most discussed topics in the entirety of its history. And so this graph really should make us take pause, because what I'm saying here, or what the data is saying here, is that an XX person on steroids would have to take something theoretically that doesn't exist, but that would confer a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times advantage of what steroids would confer, and still not quite enjoy the advantage that a trans woman would have over someone that was born female. And so what our organization determined after poring over the existing data is that someone that's born male that then takes an anti-androgen or a testosterone blocker and then competes against someone that was born female, well, we felt that that was a patent competitive unfairness. And so I'd like to end this with a quote from a trans woman that was posted a YouTube video of a much longer talk that I did a couple years ago. And I'll just read this kind of verbatim. I'm a trans woman. I haven't had testosterone for about 15 years. I'm easily the most powerful woman in my local gym after only 7 months of training. Anyone who says that there is no developmental change doesn't understand basic biology. It hurts like hell knowing that the best I could ever compete as is the quote other category, but it would be absolutely ridiculous to try to compete as a woman when biologically I am not one. I wish I was. I have done my best to be one, but I can never fully match. That's how life works. If we were biologically the sex we wanted to be, then there wouldn't be any dysphoria to begin with. I personally thank USA Powerlifting for putting this in pure hard science terms and not in any way making fun of or insulting trans people in the process. Let it be known that at least some trans people out there fully support this decision. And with this, I'll take some questions. I just want to, and I'll make this PowerPoint available. I want to point you to references number 3 and 6 in particular. 3 is a very good comprehensive literature review. And then reference number 6 is an additional study that is actually geared more toward legislators in particular. Thank you very much. And I will stop.
Thank you.